All right, students, so this week we're going to talk about tone and figurative language. Now, this week we are going to be looking at poetry. And poetry is something that is it takes a lot to understand. So I need you to pay close attention and just hang in there with me because poetry is something difficult, but together we'll get through it. All right, so first of all, I want to define tone. So tone is the author's attitude towards what he and she is writing. It's not about the reader or the characters, it's about the author. So just think, author's attitude is the tone. So I want you to think of something. Think of something you find interesting. What type of tone of voice would you have? So let's say, for example, I find The Lion King to be one of my most favorite movies. So I'm gonna be very enthusiastic about it. I'm gonna be very interested in it. I'm not going to use words, and my tone is not going to be something negative because I have positive feelings towards that. My attitude towards that movie is positive. So same in writing. Authors have different opinions, different attitudes about what he or she is writing about. So here are some examples of what examples of tone. So you can either have a happy tone, something that makes you happy or that you have a happy attitude. Maybe summer, maybe spring, maybe it's another person, maybe it's an animal. Somber, another way to say somber is sad. So you can have a sad tone in literature. Enthusiastic, that means you're really, really interested about it and you love it. Pessimist, a pessimist is someone who always looks at the negative of it. And an optimist, someone who always looks on the bright side. So those are different examples of tones and the types of tones that authors can use in their writing. How do words impact the tone? So authors use certain words to develop the tone. Obviously, in writing, we're not seeing the author's face. It would be really, really simple for us to, if we were looking at the author, if we were seeing them face to face, we would see their expression, we would see their facial expressions, we would hear their voice. But since we don't, they use words instead of facial gestures or being face to face. So let's say if an author has a somber tone or a sad tone, they're more likely to use words like dark, lonely, sad. So I want you to think, what kind of words would you use if you were writing something with a joyful tone? You'd probably use something like bright or colorful or happy or words that really are happy and joyful and that are not sad and are not dark, not somber. So words play an important part in um, in the tone. Let's talk about figurative language. So figurative language is a way that the author develops the tone. Now I said that the words are really important to distinguish the tone of the article or whatever you're reading. So figurative language is language that is not meant to be taken literally. That's to say it's not meant to be taken seriously. So whatever it says, it has a different meaning. All right? So figurative language, what it says exactly, it means something else. It's figurative. Authors use figurative language to convey. The word convey means to express, to develop their feelings on the subject, to show their feelings on the subject. There are different types of figurative language, and the ones we're going to focus on are simile, metaphor, hyperbole, onomatopoeia, and alliteration. You should have heard of these before. You have this on the content page, and you also have a chart that looks like this. I want you to go ahead and pause the video now and write the definitions of each type of figurative language, and then give me one example of each. All right, moving on. So let's practice. Let's look at these sentences, and they are types of figurative language. He was as mean as a hornet. So if it's using like or as, it is a simile. And it has like an aggressive tone because the author or whoever wrote this describing someone else as a hornet, so someone mean, someone aggressive. So we can see the type of words that he uses, mean and hornet. I am so hungry I could eat a whale. Now that's a hyperbole because it's an exaggeration, but it's also a desperate tone. You are so desperate to eat that you're saying I could eat a whale. Her eyes are crystals in the sky. So that is a simile because it's saying that one thing is another thing. Her eyes are crystals in the sky. So that's a loving or an amorous tone. If you're saying this, if you're writing this about someone else, you're obviously in love with them or you like them, or maybe you're talking about your mom, or maybe you're talking about your girlfriend. Because you're comparing her eyes to something beautiful in the sky. So now that we've talked about tone and figurative language, I want you to go ahead and start on the activities um, that follow, and we will look more in depth at how the words in the poem affect the tone of the poem.